Hi, this is Donna Robertson. We have breaking news. There are pressing issues when it comes to quilting, but we have solutions. Keep watching. Hi, it's Donna Robertson with Fabric Cafe. Today we're going to talk about those little irritating kind of things that happens whenever you're pressing your seams. Do you press them open? Do you press them closed? Do you press them to the left, to the right, to the dark, to the... all of those little rules and regulations. But one thing that I like to suggest, if you're maybe in a hurry or if you are a newbie, you might want to do this, and that is this pattern. You don't have to worry too much about that, and if you press to the dark side, it will work every single time. So let me show you how this particular quilt. This one is super easy to put together. It goes together very, very fast. And it's made up of two blocks that are super simple to put together. And when you press these, if you always press toward the dark side, you should have no problem whatsoever when you put this together. Let me show you why. So if you'll look here, I've got some pieces and parts, and I've got these all laid out. This particular quilt is made up of two simple pieces. You've got a block, and then you have a strip piecing, and this is actually strip pieced like this. So you want to make sure you have a non-directional fabric here because it's going to be turned. Now when you sew these two seams together and you press toward the dark side, it'll go like that. It's going to be going this way. When you sew this one to this one and you press to the dark side, it'll be going that way. But look down here on second row. There is no place that's even meeting right here. So you shouldn't have any problem with that. And then whenever you sew this and it goes to the dark side, the first time that you have an issue is right here, but it won't be an issue because this is your dark and it'll be going that way while this one is going that way. So they'll nest together every time perfectly. So this is a fun quilt if you don't want the headache of trying to figure out what to do when you're pressing and you get to a point where two seams are coming together. Everything is pressed to the dark side, but it doesn't work. So that is one way to deal with the issue. Now let me show you this fabric because I love this fabric, and it is called African Goddess, and this is the #1 fabric, and you can see how I've put it in this particular quilt. And then this is the #2. You compare those two and you put the lightest in the #2 position here and your darkest in this position. So this one is African Goddess 8021839, and it's broad strokes. It's from the book Quilts on the Double, and it has an alternate pattern because that pattern is only available in the book Quilts on the Double. So you can get this pattern as an alternate if you'd like. Now this next one that we're going to do is called Simply Strips, and it's from the book 3-Yard Quilt Favorites. Now Quilt Favorites is a download only book, and you will find that on the Fabric Cafe site. And if you are buying 3 kits and you want a book free, you can get the download code for that so that you can get that book free. Now the pattern that we're working with is called Simply Strips, and we have a rendering of that particular one. We want you to look at this quilt and see how cute it is the way it works out. And this one is one of those one block wonders. You're making one type of block only, and you create the same exact rows, but one of them is turned. Now a good way to do that is just lay out each one of your rows and lay it out exactly as you see it here. But as you can see, you've got a lot more of these intersections where you're going to have things meeting up. So there's a number of those. So let's talk about pressing your seams open and pressing your seams closed. So this is the very first unit that you would be working with. This is the block. So every block is made the same way, and it is made by strip piecing this way, and then the blocks are turned this way. Now if you do the traditional method of pressing your seams to the dark side, these are the steps that you'll want to take. First of all, put your darkest fabric in the up position with the seam line above, not below. You will take your iron, and I recommend when you're working with your fabrics at first that you don't use steam for these first steps. You can use steam, and as you get more and more educated with quilting, then you can do the steam on that too. And I will show you when I start using the steam. So we're going to set the seams, and you do that by pressing. I do like to use the best press at that time. Best press is a sizing, and I like the best press because it actually helps to set those seams even more. So you'll just use your dry iron, press that once again, and then you want it to cool just slightly, partly because you're going to be handling it. And you want to take this and just kind of pull it back and do what we call play the piano. So you're just kind of lightly pressing that seam like this. And you use your dry iron again. And then you spray it again with the best press. Once again, you put this down and you press. Let's put that up here. Then I like to turn it over, and some people say, why do you use so much best press? First of all, we're doing strip sets that you've cut into units or into your blocks, and this helps to lock those stitches so that when you're working with your fabric, you're not going to be pulling those stitches apart. Now, that only presses one side, so you can see this side hasn't been pressed yet. You repeat the same thing on the other side. So you put your dark side up, the seam allowance is up at the top. You press that to set the stitches, give it a little spray, and press again. Now, we repeat exactly the same thing again. We're going to play the piano on this. We want to just kind of press it lightly across that seam, and then we take our iron and press. I give it another spritz with the best press. And yes, I use a lot of best press, but it makes my blocks so much easier to handle, and I just love it a lot. Now at this point, I'm going to turn my steam on, and I'm going to go ahead and steam that. And once again, it just helps to set those seams. Now the funny thing about quilting is I probably spend more time pressing than I do sewing, but it is such an important part of making a quilt so that it turns out to look so nice. I mean, isn't that just gorgeous? Now that's if you're wanting to press your seams to the dark side. If you are one of those people like I was when I first started quilting, and sometimes it works better if you press your seam lines open. Now, if you're doing the strip piecing, some people say shorten your stitch length, and you can do that. It will cause one issue, and that is if you have to rip anything out, it's a little bit harder when those stitches are smaller and tighter. So the best press does almost exactly the same thing, because what it does is it helps to kind of glue those stitches in there. So you can choose whether you would rather go ahead and do a smaller stitch, or if you want to use the best press. And I spent years pressing all of my seams open. It takes just a moment longer to do, but it is not that hard to do. And I have never had a quilt fall apart because people say they're not quite as sturdy and all of that. It just makes it really easy for you to know how to put your pieces together, and I have some to show you. Now we've done that once. We're going to open it up and do our little piano playing. We get that done. Whoops, I've got the steam going. I meant to turn that off. For these first few presses, we're just going to turn that off. We're going to spritz and press again. Now, this is exactly the same thing that we did when we pressed our fabric to the dark side. Now what we're going to do, let's go ahead and do the other side as well. And we will press that. We will spritz. We'll press it to the dark side. Now, that's exactly the same exact steps. But we're going to add one more step to that. Some people say they don't like it. It's easier if you do it to the dark side. And in some ways it is, because you just have one thing that you're doing. But I personally like to do this when I'm going to press them open. I will press it open with my fingers right in the middle, and then just kind of give it a little push and it will open right up. Then we're going to repeat our gluing process. I laughingly call it that, but we're going to put some best press on there again. We're going to do the same thing on this side. And then we're going to, we've already pressed that to the dark side. So let's get our little opening from the middle. We're going to put your iron down. We're going to spray it again. We're going to press again. And then just for good measure, we're going to flip this little guy over. We're going to spray. And we're going to turn our steam on. Now what that did is it's setting all of those threads very nicely and making a super flat quilt. And again, this is about preference. I'm always saying you don't have to have perfection in as much as trying to find rules and regulations that somebody somewhere said you should do. Try the different things and see what you like best. When I first started teaching quilting, I pressed all my seams open, and in one of my classes I remember somebody said, well, why do you press them open, and can I just press mine to the left? And I said, you can, but I would encourage you to try it once. And at the end of the class she said, I don't think I will ever do anything but press them open, because she liked it better. Other people were saying, no way, I won't do that. And from on the camera you probably can't see the difference, but if you run your fingers across that, you can feel the little bump that is caused by pressing to the dark side versus the flat like this. Whoops, I didn't get that one quite done. So let's do that again. Kind of, that's one of those things that happens too. Okay. So that is about pressing the different directions. Now I actually have some of the units sewn together here. And so you can see here's a few of the units, and here are a few of the units, and you can see you have a lot more of the places where you're going to have the seams coming together. This is pressed open, this is pressed to the side. So you can see, and it actually is just a little bit skinnier on this one because you are taking up a little bit of space in your fabric. It's very minuscule though. So that is the instructions I would give you. Give it a try. Try once, pressing them open and see if you like it. And then the other one, press it closed. So let's look at the fabric for this quilt. It's absolutely gorgeous. And we're really excited about it when we put it together. Everybody was loving the colors. This has a little dragonfly on this batik. And we picked up the light green with a little touch of purple for the number 2. And then for the number 3, we have this gorgeous purple that blends beautifully with the purple that's in the focus fabric. Now this particular kit is 8021838, Purple Summer. Simply Strips is the pattern that we recommend, and that is in the book Quilt's Favorites, and Quilt Favorites is a download only pattern. Okay, the next one we're going to talk about is the pinwheel. Now when you do a pinwheel, you have that little issue where you have lots and lots of seams that all end up together in the middle. And we're going to talk about various ways that you can deal with that. Some of them a little harder than others, some of them pretty simple. Actually, none of them are all that hard. So let me just show you how it works. So this one is going to be adorable. It's a nurse's fabric. And here's the pinwheel all made up. Now when you make up a pinwheel and you put all of these pinwheels together, you have all of these seams coming together. And you can probably just about see it on the camera at how there's almost like a bump in the middle. That is caused by the fact that you have multiple seams coming together. And so if you looked at this, you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of fabric right here in that one little spot. Not quite as much here, but it really is rather awkward. Now there are several things that you can do to take care of that. If you want to press your seams open, you can see how nice and flat it all goes together, and you never have more than a couple, 2 or maybe 3 fabrics there together in that middle. Another way you can do that is you can do what they call spinning the seams. And here's one that's done that way. It actually is really cute, and when you get through, you say, oh, that's just so cute, because you spin those seams, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And what that does is it redistributes the layers, so there's not quite so much going on right there in the middle, and you can already see what a difference it makes from that spot to this spot where there's a big bump there. So let me show you how that works. Okay, first of all, you are going to take your, and I use a little seam ripper to lift this up, but you're going to kind of lift this up, and you're going to separate these seams. Okay, we're going to lift this up, we're going to separate just a couple of stitches there, and it will open this seam up like so. Then you go over on the other side and you do the same thing. So we're going to pick that up and do that. Now, part of what causes this to happen is whenever you are pressing to the dark side, one of these actually ends up being pressed to the light side in order to get those to nest together whenever you are pressing your quilt. I'm going to hold that while I go ahead and press this back over to the dark side. And I'm going to press my little pinwheel right in the middle. And that actually redistributes your fabric so that you've got a cute little pinwheel there in the middle. And it redistributes the fabric so you don't have that big bump there that you had just a minute ago. Now, I would press again. And you know Donna, she's going to get the best press out and give it a little more oomph. And that's how easy that is to redistribute those fabrics. Now, I would like to share with you what this would look like when we add the border to it. So we're going to take a couple of, let me take this away, and we're going to put these pinwheels up here on the table. And just imagine having the whole quilt made with your pinwheels in the circle, and you've got this adorable nurse fabric bordering the quilt. Wouldn't that be an awesome gift for a nursing friend? So that's what you do whenever you're working with your pinwheels. Now let's look at the fabric, because this is cute, cute fabric. It's a Lorelei fabric, and I know how much many of you enjoy the Lorelei fabric. So we have our nurses as your number 1 fabric. You have your nurses' caps as your number 2. And then you have the polka dot for your number 3. And we actually just use these 2 for our pinwheels, and the nurses become the border that's holding it all together, which is exactly what a lot of nurses understand, is they hold things together while the doctors are busy. So this is your information for your fabric, 8021-837. Nurturing Nurses. Pinwheel is your pattern, and Quilt Favorites is the book. All right, so I hope you enjoy seeing some different ways to deal with those little pressing issues that come up whenever you're quilting. And remember that if you order 3 kits, you can get a free book, or you'll get 1 free pattern with every one of our kits. So be sure to subscribe, click on the little bell so that you can get notifications each time we put a new video up. So it's Donna Robertson with Fabric Cafe. Have a good evening.